And depending on where you're at, it's either nighttime. Well, actually, it's getting nighttime here in the States. And then Dr. Corinne Devin is coming to us from Japan. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, Corinne.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. It's nice to be reconnected with people from my own country and speaking English. My Japanese is Skoshi. So.
Well, you're probably better off than me. I'm Japanese and I'm Skoshi. And so when I go over there and there, if we were walking along together, they'd be talking to me and I'd be looking at you. I have no idea what's going on.
I don't even know what Skoshi means. So you guys got me both beat. So
it just means you speak a little.
A little, yeah.
No Skoshi Aki.
Well, and in this case, it necessitates that I read about you because you are one of the most unique individuals I think we've ever had the pleasure to meet. So
thank you.
It's so fantastic. And so I was so giddy because our mutual friend Teresa Carpenter put us together. And man, the more I read, the more I don't know how you fit so many things in the day. Not only are you a naval commander, you're also an orthodontist. You're also formerly a Miss Texas, but then a motivational speaker on top of that. But if you really want to get crazy, I'm just going to read this one. It goes, okay. Your personal decorations include Fleet Marine Force Warfare Qualification, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal ×5, Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal ×2. This is awesome. Expert Rifle Pistol Medal.
Yes, sir.
You are the former Miss Texas, a former Miss United States, Miss Galaxy, Miss Earth, and also the 2020 International Miss, which I never heard of until just then. So you are great. And then on top of that, if that wasn't enough, she's also an author of a best-selling book called Commander to Crown. Holy moly.
Yes, and paperback comes out next week. So I'll be launching paperback, which I'm very, very excited for. So if any of your listeners ever want to know what it's like to publish a book, but do it the right way, because self-publishing is like the wild, wild west, I am more than happy to help them navigate it. Even going from digital to a print has even got its challenges. As we all know, when you look at something online versus when you print it, some things don't always look quite right. And I'm a person who prides myself on being polished and having things presentable and pristine. And that just takes time, a lot of resources, and a lot of people to help you along the way.
Oh, it does indeed. And it looks like you've utilized a lot of great people. And it's awesome because not only do you have other people help you, but you help them. And it's that give and take that really drew me to ask Teresa, can you please introduce us?
Oh, thank you so much. No, Teresa's amazing. I've learned that, life is meant to be lived. And, with life, it can be a roller coaster ride where we have our highs and our lows. And, it's really the tough thing I've learned, and I've learned it the hard way in my career, is that admitting when you're wrong, admitting when you just don't know the answer. But the more I've learned to say, gosh, I don't know what to do, but let's figure it out together. Or let's find out, can I find out with you who is the right person to go to, or who is the best person to ask this? I even had it happen to me yesterday in front of all my people for our quarters. People really like you because it shows that you're human. It shows that you're real. And let's be honest, we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, yep. I would be the first one to say, can I get a do-over? But when I do it over, can I learn how to do it right? And I think, to me, that's success. That is success, showing that not when you rock things the first time, but when you fall down and you learn how to pick yourself up. And people respect that. They really do, because it shows how authentic you really are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, mate. Oh, go ahead.
No, Gary, I was going to go, Gary, how many times have we been hearing vulnerability as a leadership trait lately?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You hit it spot on. Go ahead, Gary. I know you were going to ask.
I was going to say, and on top of that, it seems the people that think they know it all tend to be the least interesting.
I mean, I secretly love smarty pants and know-it-alls, but at the same time, there's something to be fascinating when you're like, ooh, I got them. Ooh, like, but then when that person's like, yep, you're right. I don't know it. It almost takes away the power. They're like, you can't even celebrate it because they already admitted to it.
Exactly.
I remembered in residency, I had 3 or 4 Navy, I had a couple Navy captains, but Army colonels. I was at a tri-service program. So they're in 06, depending on the service that you're talking to. And they would come in to be like, Dr. Devin, why don't you know this? Why don't you do this? Sir, that's why I'm here. I've got 365 days to become you. So just let me know. And they just started laughing because, you know, they were oral surgeons, and I love oral surgeons. We work together as orthodontists to do a lot of really great things together. But of course, you know, they're not used to Susie Sunshiner, and they've got oral surgeons who walk in like, you know, Guns N' Roses badasses. And they've got me who's just like, hi, I'm here. And nope, I don't know everything, but I'd love to learn. Where can we start?
Well, so you brought up vulnerability, and you brought up that gives you a degree of power. And I want to change a little slant on this one, because I have daughters, and I'm looking at what you've accomplished in a very male-dominated world. There's no doubt about it. I'm wondering at what point, and this is one thing I'm trying to teach my daughters too, at what point did you realize, quit seeking validation of who I am and just become? Does that make any sense at all?
Good
It
question.
does. I would be lying to say there isn't some things in my life I do seek validation on. I think that's just a human trait that we have ingrained in us, whether we like it or not. But where for me it started was when someone told me I couldn't do something, and it started at a young age. And so when I had people who I thought were looking out for me, but then projecting, you know, maybe their failures or areas they didn't succeed onto me, that's when I was like, whoa, am I going to live my life by someone else's limitations and by what they choose from me? You know, whether it was a career counselor or a teacher or another student in the class I was with, I'm like, no, like, why do I have to bend my life for their whims and their dreams? This is my life. I can choose what I want. And so I think that's where, and also with age, I think the older you get, the less you care. You just don't have the time to care. That's where that really started to come. And then also just finding good people. I mean, there's a lot of coaches in this world, but really finding people that you connect who can put that mirror in front of your face and tell you things that, yeah, probably my mom and told me, dad and told me, and I just didn't want to listen. But then you're finally hearing it from other people, and you're like, ooh, I guess that means I really need to work on that.
I think it also goes the other way as well. So you're talking about early on people that were, you know, kind of telling you what your limitations were and what you couldn't do. But I think there's also the flip side of that coin, where some of the worst decisions I've made in life is when people tell me what I can, what I would be good at, or what I could do. How did you find your internal compass to go after what Corinne wanted to do? Even though, because I'm sure there are people that were trying to limit you, but there were also people that had absolutely good intentions, I'm sure, that if you would have followed their direction would have taken you who knows where. How did you, what is that internal compass for you? How did you find that?
I mean, I think I am still finding it in some areas of my life. I would say definitely my personal life, I'm still figuring that out. But professional wise, I kept thinking about what would make me happy, what gives me joy, what gives me peace, what makes me feel good. You know, burnout is something I see among my colleagues. You know, I realize that when I'm at my best is when I have balance in my life. Yeah. And when someone would want to push something towards me and kind of feel like I have to do it, and yeah, Corinne, this is what you want to do, this is going to get you there. When I didn't feel like I had that balance, that's when I was like, ooh, I got to take a step back. One of the things that I found that when I'm doing too much, or I'm saying yes to too much by so many people wanting me to do things, because that's what you do to a busy person. You keep piling on stuff to them. I always tell people, any corporation, and this is true in the military, 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work, because you know that 20 will actually do it. I will start to be, I'll start to become forgetful on silly things, simple things. I will find myself almost slightly more irritable on things that I would never be irritable. And when those two things start happening, especially the forgetfulness, that's when I realize, ooh, that's my compass. I need to like I need to pause, and I need to pause real quick. And I would say sometimes it's your emotions. Sometimes I think it's just when you realize like something's out of sync, something's not right. But that's what for me has been my gut instinct for internal compass in my professional life.
What I am loving and adoring about you in the short time that we have been connected here is the fact that no one could put you under their thumb because you own it so quickly. When Gary asked you, you tell me how you developed that compass, and you went straight away, I'm still developing it, man. I'm still, and that in and of itself, that vulnerability lends itself to other people wanting to learn from you and breaking down barriers that would otherwise be way up there. The walls would be way up there with that false sense of bravado. It's a skill that is rare nowadays because we are in such a winning mode. And so to follow on to that comment, you have influenced so many kids in the work that you do. I saw that you were in STEM, which is a big deal nowadays.
Yeah.
And you have all these kids looking at you, right? Here's Commander Devin coming in, or here's Miss USA or Miss Texas or whatever it might be. You're coming in from a position of power, but I'm sure just like you have here, you make it very real for them. I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind delving into how do you connect with individuals, kids or adults, on a very personal level like that?
It depends on the environment. So if I'm in my dental chair, I'm in scrubs and a white coat. So I always ask if I can call them by their first name, whether it's the sergeant major of my base or the private first class. Like I remember a kid yesterday, he was so scared to smile. And I'm just like, can I call you Cody? And, granted, we're not outside, I'm very good about, I try to pride myself on having good military brain. Like there's a time and place for rank, but in my dental chair, we're in scrubs. It's a private environment. I want to make people feel comfortable. And I find when you take an interest in someone, you ask about them. People love to talk about themselves. That's one way. The other way is like, let's say I'm in front of a group of a large people. I always start with a story. People are never going to remember exactly what you said, but they're going to remember how you make them feel. And if you can start with a story where it shows vulnerability, it shows that you failed at something, and then how you triumph, people are going to remember that more than anything. And that's something that I've learned with speaking is that in the first like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, that's your time. That's like, hey, you're ninth inning, you're up at bat. That is your time to have people catch you. And then, probably, with the STEM group particularly, I was so scared to do that. That was my first large speaking to a bunch of girls in middle school who probably have their phones, have their friends. And you want me to keep their attention for like 30 minutes? Are you kidding me? So I just thought, okay, what was it like when I was that age, growing up on a military base? I was insecure. I was called Four Eyes. I didn't look or feel the confident woman I am today. And let me start from there and talk about what it's like to be that kid. And that's where I started. And I think it's important for people to see us in their environment. So the girls, yes, they saw me with a crown on my head. They saw me with a military uniform behind me. But then an hour later, they're all rotating in different areas of my base, whether they're on a ship, or they're with my friends who are aviators with a helicopter. If they came to the hospital, they see me in scrubs and white coat, and they're seeing me another place. And that's what I really try to tell people is like, you don't have to fit in a box. You don't have to do this one size fits all. You can do things uniquely and differently and make it your own way and still be successful. Because at the end of the day, it's you that you're looking in the mirror, and you got to say what makes you happy. It doesn't matter what other people tell you. So I would say probably the last big speech I did was to at the American Association of Orthodontists. I was a keynote speaker at the Midwinter Conference, and to speak for 90 minutes, the longest speaker ever. I was scared. I was so scared because these are highly intelligent people who are type A++, perfectionists, super critical. And I know this because I'm one of them. And this is our first live conference since 2019, I think February 2020 was the last one we did. And then, the world just like paused. Yeah. And I thought, okay, and I'm not talking about anything scientific. I'm going to go on stage and they're going to be like, okay, you're not in private practice. You're not teaching a residency program. yeah, you're in the military. That's really cool. But what are you going to teach me
Right.
for 90 minutes and keep my attention? Oh, and by the way, it's after lunch.
Exactly. When people are in a tryptophan.
Yeah. So, that's where I worked. I worked with a TED Talk coach. I worked with a coach who really works well with public speakers, and she taught me some tools, because even adults, our mind capacity of handling something like that is 55 minutes.
Wow.
55 minutes. And so anyways, I'm so sorry. Can you just pause for just a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And but go ahead there. That was a fun pause.
Yeah, it was a fun pause. Well, what I was going to say is just, what I've learned is when you work with your audience is knowing your audience when it comes to public speaking. So my audience was, a group of orthodontists, their staff, anyone in the industry, maybe, people that are corporations, and knowing that the adult span to, comprehend and absorb information for speakers is 55 minutes, yet they wanted me to go for 90.
Yeah.
And what I did, and I would share this trick with anyone in your audience, is that I learned how to break things up. So having a main core idea, then break things up into 3 separate ideas, have a story, have an explanation, and then I had people do an exercise. And what did that do? It kind of break up the monotony. It add a little levity to the groups. And then you could hear people chat and bring things, even in a COVID environment. And then I had everything organized. So I had about 3 different binders with timestamps, Post-it notes, and provided it to the AV crew, the front stage, the backstage, the moderator, because you have people watching from back home. And when you think about things and you plan things, it's like anything else in anything in your life. 90% of it's preparation, 10% of it's actually doing it. Right. And for me, it's what really I think has been a catalyst for me to do more speaking events. I did something here with the Marines. I've got a couple events coming up this fall. They're on a smaller scale, but still, I always tell people, anytime you're ready to do something in life that's big, that's huge, that's critical, think about who is your audience, what is your end goal, what are you trying to achieve, and then let's start breaking it down step by step. I would be lying to say there isn't a couple things in my life I'm working on. I have a competition actually in October that I'm working on that is completely different than anything I've ever done, and it's overwhelming, but it's learning, okay, how can I do this portion? Who can I recruit for help? Who can help me do this? Okay, this is another area I want to do, but they're putting hurdles in front of me of ways I normally do it. Okay, what's my workarounds? Who can I reach out to? And I would say that every asset of my life, whether it's been the military, orthodontics, pageantry, the speaking, the writing, I've been able to find really great people along the way that want to help you, because in turn, those lessons learned, they know you're going to pass it forward. And that is something that in my book that I do, I list all the people with their permission that I've used, that I have vetted, that I trust, just because like in any industry, there's good people and people that, probably feel pretty far off the tree. And the people that I've worked with and connect, I would use them a million times over. So that's just something that's really helped me be successful no matter the environment, and kind of look at every challenge, not as a challenge, but as an opportunity to be courageous, to go outside my comfort zone.
I love it. And getting out of that comfort zone is so vital. Matter of fact, it's so easy to stay in that comfort zone, but you just mentioned 3 very distinctly different things: military, orthodontics, and pageantry. How did you get out of any of those comfort zones? Because I know what it's like. Not saying I've been in a beauty pageant, obviously, but I know the preparation for it, because I have had friends that have gone through it, and just the nerves that go into that pageantry. And then heaven forbid that you had to have some type of orthodontics test while you're doing that. Not only how did you juggle that, but how did you overcome staying in the comfort zone when it would have been very easy to do so?
So I got into pageantry as a complete dare from some jerk in my who told me I couldn't do it. So that wasn't like something like I grew up in a military family. Can you imagine my father, who's now a retired commander, being like, oh yeah, you can do pageants? No way. Like I was lucky to twirl a baton in a parade. Like, but and it even took a while. I'll be honest, my parents were not on board with me doing pageants until I won my first national title and they've got to see me on stage, because I just thought it was a bunch of foo-foo until my dad was like, oh my God, you have to be in better shape than any military physical fitness test. And they ask you like questions that are like probably, something you hear the White House press secretary gets asked, and you've got to do it and still be Switzerland. And I'm like, exactly. And for me, it's learning that a lot of the skills along the way can be transferable and benefit the other areas of my life. So even some areas where I'm like, oh, I just don't know if I should do this, I take a step back and be like, you know what, if this is going to make me a better speaker, is this going to make me a better leader? Then guess what? That pageant, that competition is making me a better officer, a better person for my people. Wow. So I think that is the way I've always looked at it. So with the military and being orthodontics is humbling. There is no one way to do orthodontics. Like the older I get and the longer I've practiced, the more I realize how much I don't know and the areas that I really need help on. But, it's admitting that. And, I would say to anyone who feels that's normal, that's human. But then, okay, now that you've decided you don't know it, now let's make a decision on what you're going to do about it.
Yeah. I appreciate what you do as an orthodontist. I have a bunch of kids. Matter of fact, all my kids have had braces, man.
I surprisingly have not had braces. I know people are going to kill me for saying that. I do wear a retainer at night because I know what my teeth are going to become, because I've treated my mom, my dad. I took off their braces from their last orthodontist to help them out. And I haven't treated my brother. He's in the Navy. He won't get braces from me because I know he won't wear his retainer. maybe he'll wisen up now that he's getting older, but we'll see. Not for right now. I'll take care of my nephew.
Oh my
God. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Well, maybe it's difficult. I don't know. So you've obviously been mentored by and have been a mentor for so many people. It's obvious. I mean, you've told us example after example where your success is directly from reaching out to other people. If you had to say, what were let's say the top two most important people in your life, whether it was some sort of mentorship relationship, a parent, anything like that, what would you say and why?
That's like asking a woman what her favorite pair of shoes are in the
I know. I told you it was going to be hard.
So I've got a good story with one of them. So I'll start with there. When I decided I want to become a dentist, I actually wanted to be a pediatric dentist. Loved working with kids. And when I was in dental school, that was the train I was on. I'm going to be a pediatric dentist. After dental school, I'm going to pedio residency. And one week when I was working in a pediatric office of a very well-known pediatric dentist who used to teach, there was an orthodontist who was there. And he's like, hey, I've been watching you, but I realized I don't think you've got the personality for a pediatric dentist. I think you would do really well in ortho. And I didn't know him. He looked like the tall guy from Back to the Future, the crazy scientist, individual. And his wife was just so sweet. And one day the pediatric dentist said, hey, listen, I think the orthodontist really likes you. Can you go talk to him? We were going to distract him for his birthday. And that's what was kind of the catalyst. He's like, you know what, Corinne, I'm stealing you. You're not going to work with him, but don't worry, I'm going to smooth it out. And I remember that day, he took his diploma off the wall, took it out of the frame, made a copy of it, scratched out his name, put my name in it, and made a copy and gave it to me. And he's like, this is going to be you. And that was back in 2005. And then in 2016, I got what it said on that document. I'm a board certified orthodontist. It took me 4 years after residency that I got it. And so I never dreamed someone like that could be so pivotal in my life. And now I'm part of I'm like the daughter they never had. So I'm part of them.
I have goosebumps. Look at that. I have goosebumps.
So that is one mentor. now I'll do a military mentor. I've had a couple military mentors. Gosh, I will have to say probably it's going to be Captain Scott Curtis. He just retired after 30 years serving our country. And when I didn't realize this, but both our dads were in the Navy together.
Oh, what?
And
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I didn't know that until I already came in the service. And when I was in dental school, he was another person who said I had the personality of an orthodontist. And it was just this tall surfer guy, like who was this cool commander who I'm just like, was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I never had braces. Like, I think of what those people are like at my school. Like, I'm not one of them. And when I came into the military, I did a 1-year just general practice residency where I worked with the oral surgeon, the orthodontist. I was working with some individuals, and some of my attendees really liked me, and some of them thought I was just a cheerleader that only cared about pageants and nothing else. No. And he really stood out for me. He actually wrote me a letter, and then through him, I was able to work with an oral surgeon who said she has more humbleness and more courage than other people that I work with in my community. And it would be the biggest mistake of her life not to take her. And they wrote these letters and I never saw them. I only found out afterwards when I was in Iraq and I got selected for residency.
Wow. That is awesome. That is absolutely fantastic. And you're teaching me so much because, you know, there's a grand assumption out there, especially when it comes down to the beauty pageants, for instance, that, and I found since I know a lot now, that it couldn't be further from truth, that they're hollow individuals, and understanding what it takes to prepare for those things mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. Oh my goodness gracious. How would you, and I apologize for the pivot. How do you break that stigma? Because they saw it in you, but how do you really break that stigma?
I'm not going to lie. It's really hard. I've had some leaders in my career who have been 100% supportive of it. And I have some who've downright put every block and wall in my way of preventing me to do it. So what I've learned, especially since my first overseas tour in Japan, when I won Miss United States, is I became with three key people. And the people that I became friends with and got to know and found someone in their community that I could connect with was public affairs, the JAGs, which are your lawyers in the military, judge, advocate general, and IT, information technology. And I'm going to tell you why. The reason being is that any commanding officer, any director, any person in leadership, they have to follow Uniform Code of Military Justice, and they also have to follow guidance and instructions. So if they want to educate me on instructions or things that they would know, I go to the expert, the subject matter expert in the field, to know exactly what my boundaries are, what I can do and not do. And if I'm following that, if I have someone who has a bias or someone who just doesn't like me, let's be honest, it's just hard to get along with everyone. Then at least I have that guidance instruction to know, guess what? Yeah, you probably aren't crazy that I'm doing this, but guess what? I'm actually following military code, Uniform Code of Military Justice. And the person that, if you're upset about it and you go to the person above me, my commanding officer, guess who they're going to go to? The person who I already have a working relationship with, that I actually go to and do things by the book. Because there's plenty of people in the military who don't do things by the book. Right. And as an officer, we're held to a higher standard. I would be lying to tell you the further that I get in my career, the more of an eye I do have on me. And it's for that reason that I really pride myself on making key relationships at every command I go to. And I tell people there's a couple things that you have to do. One, you have to kill your job performance. If you are not doing and crushing the mission, your day-to-day job, that would be hard for anyone to ask you to do anything afterwards, whether you're running a marathon in, for the Great Wall of China, or if you're doing a pageant. The second thing is communication. You keep everyone in the loop. This competition I'm doing in October, I had my boss write a letter saying I was in military good standing before I even entered the competition. And what does that do? It's keeping my boss in the know. So when I told him, hey, sir, guess what? I made the top 25. I'm going to compete in October. I'll keep you posted on it. guess what? Now I've got a paper trail. So that is what I've learned to do. But I would definitely tell you, there is a paradigm shift in the military. That old school mind thought, I'm having more leaders see the benefit of, because they realize it puts the military in a positive light. Where it gets tricky in the military right now is social media. There's not a ton of clear guidance. There's some things that are very crystal clear of like, I can't wear my crowning uniform. I can't be at a rally, speaking on stage in my uniform. Like there's very like clear things you can't do, but there's also a lot of gray areas. And I really applaud several of my friends like Teresa Carpenter, like my friend Alexis, who has a very robust channel, like my friend Kelly Sabrachi and Jackie Barnum, who have then taken their influence and work with military leadership to spread positive, correct information to show that you can do both. You can, because in turn, guess what? I'm a better officer because of pageants. I'm a better orthodontist because of pageants. Like that's a win-win situation. And maybe your hobby is fly fishing. Maybe your hobby is horseback riding. But when you have people that can ignite that passion in other ways, it would be behoove of us not to realize it's going to spill over in other areas of life. And that has been my way of getting around some of the pushback.
I appreciate what you said about understanding your boundaries. It's so easy to get into subject areas that we feel that we have everything down pat on, and that lack of humility leads to where I know what's happened to me. I pushed the boundaries because I honestly didn't understand them in the first place. Right? Mm-hmm. But I have to say, I also appreciate you saying that pageants helped you to become better in the other arenas. And I also see it vice versa. A better orthodontist made you a better pageant person, better military or commander made everything else too. And it's interesting. You talked about balance before, how that does balance each other out. It's amazing given everything that I just read about you or read about your career. You're helping me understand how you make it all fit together. I appreciate that.
I'm still learning. Trust me, there's not a week that goes by that I'm not learning. And I always am grateful when I meet other people, other gentlemen like yourself, who have such a diverse past and a unique past, because there's something to be said by that. That's something I'm really looking forward to as things open up. Unfortunately, in Japan, we are not open to the world yet. We still have to wear masks pretty much most places where we go. And unless you are a citizen of the country or on a status force agreement, it's very, very challenging to come here. So I am looking forward to the day where I can have more of these conversations and meet more of these people, because to me, that's what makes life so fascinating and interesting, because you hear about someone doing something that you never thought was possible. And you're like, wow, like, gosh, if you could do it, like, shoot, what's stopping me from doing that? Like, probably myself. I'm my biggest, hold up. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too, kind of going off what Marie said, and to use a military example, it almost seems like you do your due diligence to put on the armor to a point that you become as untouchable as you possibly can. It seems like you're very thoughtful in what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to accomplish it. And I think as people look up to you, I hope that's something that they realize, because I think many times in our society, we want to be the rebel and we want to just go out there and change the world. But you're doing it in such a systematic way that you're basically untouchable. I think that's impressive. I don't know if you've actually realized that's what you're doing.
I would say the reason maybe I'm so methodical and strategic is because I've had a lot of people question things in my career, and I would not say investigation, but I've had a lot of people, I don't want to say attack, that sounds very malicious, but I would just say I've had a lot of people question things to the point where it really forced me to be more on my A game. And listen, I had a colleague this past year who really saw some things that didn't add up, and her perception was it was something else. And even though it was hard to read, very, critical, feedback that I got from her, I kind of took a step back and I'm like, you know what, you're right. I didn't see from that point of view. Let me go back and change it. And oh, by the way, can you take another look at it and let me know how it looks? Because now I'm seeing, okay, are we coming from a place of helpful, or are we coming to a place from hurtful? And
Yeah.
Even though it shook me at my core, it forced me to be on more top of my A game. I would say, you know, what I've learned the hard way in the military is that there is a protocol for everything. And if you don't follow the steps on the way, even though the rebelness part of you has a solid message, like there is, you know, there is something to that core of that message that needs to be heard, that needs to be acknowledged. In the military, I've learned that if you don't follow the proper steps, they will crush you on that protocol, and then that message you had goes away. And I've seen it happen. Wow. And it frustrates me so much as a leader when I see my own people get trapped in that. And when they do, I will put my neck on the line and be like, you know what? They didn't know. I failed them as a leader, sir. Or I failed them as a leader, ma'am, because they didn't know that. So I want their complaint, and you can lay on me because I failed them not educating them on that, but I'm going to correct that. So that is what I have done. And it's tough, but it's just, you know, that no one likes confrontation. No one likes having people come down on you, but the more you do it, I don't want to say the easier it becomes, but then it's like, okay, what are they going to do to me now? Like, you know, I'm going to the principal's office again. Okay, what are they going to say that I haven't already heard? Not saying I'm going to discount their message and let it go through one ear out the other, but just more of like, you're right. It forces you to bring a shield. And I would say that earlier in my life, I had such a good shield up that I wouldn't let people see things. And because of that, people probably thought, oh, she already knows everything. She's so, you know, or they're intimidated. And I think sometimes when people see me break down, like I had one this week where people saw me break down, they're like, oh my gosh, like this really is affecting her. Like she really feels bad. Like I've had people even apologize, like, I didn't make you so upset. And I'm just like, I'm so frustrated. Like like even getting now, you could probably see my eyes getting teary eyed because I got so passionate about it.
Well, the awesome thing about that passion is it's not just a passion for protecting your own boundaries. It's protecting your people. The fact that you went to bat for that individual, as soon as you said, I go, I'll go to battle for you. I'll go into battle with you. And that's something that isn't as prevalent today. It's an unfortunate thing, and understanding that there's leaders like yourself. This isn't a kumbaya statement. The fact of the matter is that's what we need more of, is understanding that they truly have our back instead of protecting their own all the time. And that vulnerability, again, we return back to something you began with, is critical for that. The power of vulnerability is just gigantic.
Well, and what's interesting is vulnerability used to be seen as a weakness. But when it really comes down to it, you know, people trust you and know that you have their back because you are vulnerable. So it's actually like a superpower in some kind of
it is a superpower.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Brene Brown said it so well in one of her talks that I had watched, where she said, you know, tell me an act of courage or something that you did that involved courage, vulnerability, you know, risk of uncertainty. And she's asked all these people, including Navy SEALs, and all of them said, well, we'll have to circle and get back to you, because they had to be vulnerable, whether it was with their life, with the people in their team. You know, and I tell people it's no different whether I'm in an office or I'm out in the field with the Marines, or I've got sailors on a ship. Like, and, you know, my father said it to me really well at a young age. He's like, it's okay to feel scared, but it's not okay to act scared. And vulnerability is almost like we're acknowledging the situation, even though we've got to be brave and we're not sure what we're going to do. I mean, I remember when I was in Iraq and I land on the ground and they tell me, by the way, you're in a country with the most uncharted minefields, like in the top 10, and they're starting listing the countries. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know if my next step is going to be my last, but if I don't take the next step, then I'm not going to get anywhere. And so those experiences like shape you, and they make you realize that, you know, there's a lot of petty things in life that just don't need the capacity for us to really worry about. And it's more about focusing on the real issues, the people that you work with and what matters. And you know, as a leader, we give away all the credit and we take all the responsibility. And we do so because you are trusting us to be your voice. You are trusting us to do the things that you may not be able to do, or you may not know how to do. And when I admit to you that I don't know how to do something, or I'm struggling with something, I don't know. I think people they're more understanding. They may not like the decisions that you make sometimes, but if they understand the why, they're more on board. And that's something that I want to see more in the military. It's something I've stressed to my leadership, that if you leave things vague, if you don't pride yourself on being clear, direct, you know, you can be sweet, but you can also be not apologetic, you know, but you clarify things, you leave a lot of room for interpretation. And with interpretation, just opens up like Pandora's box.
Man, this is incredibly inspiring and thought-provoking. I want to take notes, but my table would shake right now. And I'm going to go back and listen to this quite a bit, because looking at the individual you are on paper doesn't even come close to the tip of the iceberg of the things that you've developed in character.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's just, when I hear the character aspect of it, the paper, I understand a lot more. Before, it was questions of how did you, instead of how did you become? And that's exactly what it was. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So
well, thank you. I look forward to the day where I'm able to thank you both in person. I have an insane bucket list of the United States, because when you've lived overseas for 9 years, you've realized there's a lot of places in your own country you have not even been.
Yeah. So anytime, and I know you have friends here.
Yes.
Yes. Anytime. And man, I know that I am just amped and humbled at the same time for the things that you just taught us. And I can't thank you enough for sharing those experiences, especially at the expense of vulnerability. Right.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's wonderful being able to share that. And I can't wait to see what other things can come from it. So if you guys want to preview what's coming next, I can give a quick preview on what's happening in the world of Corinne. Yes. So next week, I launched my paperback book, Commander to Crown. So I had a lot of people are like, Corinne, I just want something to hold on to. I like the smell of books. I like looking them. I don't want to look at a computer screen after all day long. And I get that. Yeah. So that is coming next week. That'll be launched on Thursday, the 21st of July. And then the other thing that's going to be coming up outside of the military is I am a finalist for the Miss Veteran America competition. And that's happening.
Yeah.
All right. Congratulations.
Yes.
So I will get to compete for the job, and that works hand in hand with Final Salute, which helps out homeless female veterans and providing sustainable housing. Most people don't realize, but there's over 2 million women veterans, and at any given day, over 55,000 of them are homeless. And that just blows my mind away, coming from a family. Like, I never dreamed I would join, and somehow I drank the Kool-Aid 15 years in, and my family goes back to the Revolutionary Service. And that just thought never became something that was prevalent until I'm learning that they're the fastest growing homeless population. And so to be part of a organization that really makes a pledge to, get the resources, provide the things to make them get back into society, give them the skill sets, because everyone has a job like I do, where it's very transferable to the civilian world. I think there's something to be said by that, and something that the military really needs to help out our members, whether, no matter their walk of life. And so those are the two things that are still happening in 2022 for Corinne. A few other fun leadership courses, but I'm still trying to figure out how to fit everything in with my day-to-day life.
Well, that sounds like two additional episodes for sure.
It does. And I am very interested in hearing a lot more about the female veterans and homelessness, because I had never even thought of that. You hear veterans as a whole, and I care deeply about them because my father's a veteran, my wife's father is a veteran, my brother's a veteran, and to hear it from that perspective, boy, that's a whole nother avenue I think we could shed a whole lot of light on. So I'd hope you consider that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess for me, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and learning about areas that you just thought that are well taken care of, or that's one beauty I've learned with social media, is you're shedding light on certain areas that are just underserved resources, or areas where you can tap into. And I've just been so grateful to have certain people bring up certain areas of my life that I never knew, like the female veterans, and helping them that I just didn't even know, because being overseas, sometimes I'm in a bubble. It's like having one foot in the US and one foot on the outside. I do live out in town. And so, and it's even learning adopting some of the cultures here. So one thing that I would say that I would hope in the US that we could adopt from Japan, besides like, there's no trash anywhere and you could probably eat off any street, is the idea of being fully present. In the Japan culture, people don't have their phones out when they talk to you. In fact, if you hand someone a business card, they will hold on to it the entire conversation. And if you do what most Americans do, like, oh, you take it and put it away, that's like you having your phone out and texting while you're talking to someone when you're being introduced. And yes, they don't shake hands. We do a lot more bowing. Sometimes they shake hands because obviously they look at me and, I'm a flashlight here in Japan. If your audience is listening, I'm blonde hair, blue eyed, and 5'3", which is tall in Japan. And it's one of those things of just being fully present for the moment. And it's so true. Even different seasons like Sakura, cherry blossom season, that's so short. For them, it's showing that life is so fleeting. So that is something that I've really, I really hope that anyone, when the country opens, anyone here can come and embrace and see the beauty of.
I just want to thank you for another lesson you just taught me. I've always been presented to present with two hands. I always took it with two hands and then I put it right in my pocket.
I don't want you to cause an international incident. I've learned, just in Japan, and that's where my Japanese is getting really good, but it is still, I can just think in the back of their head, like, oh my God, this poor white girl is not seeing anything right. Bless her heart. Like, I'm thinking that's what they're saying when they're like, oh, your English is good, sensei. And I'm like, oh my God, you're just being nice.
You're good. I know what they're thinking about me, because my uncle, one time he got pretty plastered and he told me exactly what he thought, and he lives there.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's family.
It was so funny, man. Oh my goodness. Well, no, Corinne, thank you again for joining us. And please, 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 let's follow up. We have a very deep respect for the military and everything that you do and everything you represent. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have a great rest of your day. And it was a pleasure being here.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.